again, this is, if nothing else, something of a gift, I suppose, for Hillary Clinton, who can sit back and let GOP leadership do what she began with that speech in San Diego last week, lining up Donald Trump in the crosshairs. It's also, I guess, speaks to the looming presence of Donald Trump throughout this election cycle, that a historic lead has been buried here. Caitlin, a woman now sits atop a major party ticket as a presidential nominee for the first time in history. A Super Tuesday that has sort of been unplugged a bit with the news yesterday that she had clinched the nomination. What do these optics mean?
Well, notably, it's 8 years to the day today that Clinton ended her first attempt at making this kind of history. So that's kind of significant. And she's been talking this week about the personal and really emotional terms, more emotional than we've seen her on the trail this year, about what this distinction means. And she's really setting up, last week we saw the contrast. We were wondering how she could possibly take on an opponent who is really difficult to pin down on a variety of different issues. And I do think that speech last week had something of a rallying effect among Democrats who are looking at this race as a referendum on Donald Trump. I think that she can use that to really appeal to Bernie Sanders supporters and say, look, let's look at our ultimate goal here.
Yeah, and I think that speech was also important in the sense that there's a lot of thought behind, about Hillary Clinton not being able to summarize her campaign, and just sort of boil it down to what me versus this other person, whether it was Sanders or now Trump. And that was a great example of her basically saying, look, he doesn't have the temperament and he's not qualified to be president of the United States. That is about as simple of an argument as you can make. And if that's something that resonates with people, we won't know until we start seeing polling in the next few weeks. But if that resonates, then she's hit a grand slam with this, which is not something that she's really done in terms of messaging over the primary season.
But in having to run a two-front campaign, it does also leave you in a difficult place, having to cast yourself in terms of difference opposite two. She is essentially now left Bernie Sanders at the curb with that speech, if nothing else. We also learned that President Obama reached out to Bernie Sanders over the weekend. He will be making his way tonight to Vermont to perhaps digest what happens today. Obviously, a lot of hopes for the Sanders campaign had been pinned on California. He said, as of late last night, staying in. As of today, he is tweeting, reminding those 6 states, go to the polls. He has said, I'm going to see you in Philadelphia in July. But what, Steve, do you suspect we might hear from Senator Sanders tomorrow when the dust is settled?
I do want to point out that what we're hearing from Sanders now is pretty much what you hear from all candidates. You heard it from Ted Cruz the day before he dropped out of the race. You heard it from Hillary Clinton in 2008, and she ultimately dropped out. I'm not suggesting that Bernie Sanders is ultimately going to drop out, but let's just put it this way. The numbers are not working in his favor. In fact, there's no math at all. There's no metric that gives him an argument to continue in this race as a full-on challenger to Hillary Clinton. You're now going to start hearing, you're going to see Democrats circling the wagons around Clinton. You saw Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader, come out and endorse Hillary Clinton today, something she's been waiting to do, did it today. We're hearing that President Obama may endorse Hillary Clinton soon. These are the kinds of these important Democrats now basically saying, okay, game over now. Let's move on. She's the nominee. We got to focus on Donald Trump. All that's going to be weighing on Sanders' mind as he figures out his future. I just don't know how loud and how persuasive the people within his campaign are going to be in terms of trying to say, you need to stay in this through the convention. I don't know how many people there are in the campaign that are going to be doing that. We know there's a few. We also don't know if they're going to change their mind after tonight. But I would think that if you look at the reality of this, and if Sanders looks at the reality of this, it's going to be time to move on. If not tomorrow, definitely soon after tonight's primaries.
Both of these campaigns had June 7th circled for so very long, not thinking perhaps circle June 6th as well, and it's turned Super Tuesday into something else altogether. Caitlin, Huey-Burns, Steve Chaggaris, we really appreciate the time.